Life can change in an instant. For Marcus Thompson, that moment came during the quiet hours of his night shift at Wilson Manufacturing. The single father of two had always put others first, even when it meant risking everything. That night, hearing a child's cry in the darkness behind the factory, he didn't hesitate. He chose compassion over caution, humanity over his hourly quota. It cost him his job, but what he didn't know was that this sacrifice would lead to an extraordinary twist of fate. Could one act of kindness really transform not just his life, but the lives of everyone around him? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The gentle whir of the coffee maker filled the modest kitchen of the Thompson household as dawn crept through faded curtains. Marcus stood at the counter, his weathered hands mechanically spreading peanut butter on wheat bread, while his eyes scanned the pile of bills beside him. The morning light caught the silver threading through his dark hair, premature grey that had appeared in the 3 years since Sarah's passing. A familiar creak from the hallway announced Emma's arrival before she appeared. At 17, she was the spitting image of her mother. Same honey-brown hair, same determined set to her jaw. She clutched an envelope in her hands, the Stanford logo visible in the corner. "Dad?" Her voice wavered between excitement and hesitation. "It came yesterday. I was waiting for the right time." Marcus set down the knife, wiping his hands on his worn jeans. The right time. There was bitter irony in those words. When was the right time to tell your daughter that her dreams might have to wait? "Come here, sweetheart." He pulled out a kitchen chair. The legs scraped against linoleum that had seen better days, just like everything else in their small ranch house. "Let's look at it together." Emma sat, her fingers tracing the envelope's edges. "I already opened it," she confessed. "I got in." Pride and pain warred in Marcus's chest, his brilliant girl following her mother's footsteps toward medical school. Sarah would have been so proud. The acceptance letter trembled in Emma's hands as she passed it to him. "Full academic scholarship?" His voice caught as he read further. "Emma, this is only partial," she finished quietly. "There's still room and board, books, fees." She understood the math as well as he did. Even with his overtime at the car factory, they were barely keeping afloat. A sleepy-eyed Tyler wandered in, his 13-year-old frame already promising to outgrow his sister. "What's everyone doing up so early?" "Your sister got into Stanford," Marcus announced, forcing brightness into his tone. He wouldn't let his worries dim this moment. They would figure something out. They always did. Tyler's face lit up. "Really? That's awesome!" He hugged his sister impulsively, then stepped back, suddenly self-conscious about the display of affection. "Does this mean I get your room when you leave?" Emma laughed, ruffling his hair. "Dream on, squirt." "I might not." "You're going," Marcus interrupted firmly. He stood, returning to the counter to finish making lunches. "We'll make it work." Behind him, Emma and Tyler exchanged glances. They knew that tone, the one that meant their father would work himself to exhaustion, trying to make the impossible possible. The same tone he'd used when their mother got sick, when the medical bills started piling up, when he promised them they would stay in their home no matter what. "Dad," Emma started, but Marcus shook his head. "Eat your breakfast, Tyler. You have. That math test today, remember?" He packed their lunches with careful precision, tucking a small note into each bag, a tradition Sarah had started that he couldn't bear to break. "I'll pick up an extra shift this weekend. Maybe Sarah at work knows about some scholarship opportunities." The siblings ate in unusual silence, the Stanford letter lying between them like a beautiful, impossible dream. Marcus moved around the kitchen, his movements efficient despite the bone-deep exhaustion from his night shift. He hadn't slept yet, but there were calls to make, options to explore. As his children gathered their backpacks, Marcus hugged them each in turn. "I'm proud of you both," he said, meaning it with every fiber of his being. "So proud." Emma lingered in the doorway. "Dad, get some sleep, okay? We'll figure it out together." Marcus watched them walk down the cracked driveway, Emma's arms slung around her brother's shoulders. The morning sun caught the Stanford letter still on the table, making it gleam like a beacon of hope, or a reminder of promises he wasn't sure he could keep. He picked up the coffee pot, pouring another cup. He couldn't afford to skip. There would be time for sleep later. Right now, he had some math of his own to do. The fluorescent lights of Wilson Manufacturing's Building C hummed overhead as Marcus clocked in for his night shift. 10 hours of precision machinery work stretched before him, each minute measured against production quotas that seemed to climb higher every week. He nodded to Joey at the security desk, their usual greeting muted by the constant drone of industrial fans. "Thompson!" Sarah Chen, his shift supervisor, waved him over to her station. Her silver-streaked black hair was pulled back in its usual tight bun, clipboard clutched to her chest like armor. "Got a minute?" Marcus's stomach tightened. Sarah only used that tone when corporate had handed down another directive. In 15 years at Wilson's, he'd learned to read the subtle shifts in her usually steady demeanor. "New quotas?" he asked, falling into step beside her. Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line. "Worse. They're cutting third shift by 30%. Next month, everyone's numbers are under review." She lowered her voice. "Marcus, your productivity dipped last quarter during Emma's college applications." "I'll make it up," he promised, already calculating how many extra minutes he could squeeze from each hour. "You know I always hit the marks, Sarah." "I know." She touched his arm briefly, a gesture that spoke of years of shared struggles. But Thompson, the new operations manager, doesn't care about track records or family situations. Her eyes, lined with decades of watching good people ground down by corporate demands, met his. "Just be careful." Marcus nodded, throat tight. Sarah had been his supervisor since his first day, had approved emergency leave when Sarah got sick, had looked the other way when he needed to take calls from Emma's school. She understood what it meant to be a single parent. Her own daughter was in medical school now. The assembly line beckoned, its rhythmic movement marking time in steel and plastic. Marcus took his position, muscle memory guiding his hands through the familiar motions. Around him, the night shift crew worked with the quiet efficiency of people who knew their livelihoods, balanced on razor-thin margins. "Did you hear about Mike in Building A?" Ramon, working the station next to Marcus, kept his voice low. 23 years here, called in sick 3 days for his kid's surgery. They let him go yesterday. Marcus's hands never faltered, even as his mind raced. Mike had 2 years left before retirement. What about his benefits? Gone. Ramon shook his head. New policy. 3 unexcused absences in 6 months. Doesn't matter the reason. The conversation died as Jeffrey Morris, the new operations manager, made his way through the production floor. His polished shoes and pressed slacks looked out of place among the oil-stained concrete and safety equipment. He carried a tablet, making notes as he observed each station. "Thompson," Morris called, out consulting his screen. "Your units per hour are 5% below optimal. Care to explain?" Marcus kept his eyes on his work, knowing every second of pause counted against him. "Had some material jams last week, sir. Already adjusted my process." Morris made another note. "We'll be watching those numbers closely. Wilson Manufacturing can't carry dead weight in this economy." Sarah appeared as Morris moved on, her presence a buffer against the chill he'd left behind. "Don't let him get to you," she murmured. "Just keep your head down and work clean." The hours ticked by in a blur of precision movements and mechanical rhythms. Marcus felt the fatigue settling into his shoulders, but he couldn't afford to slow down. Emma's acceptance letter seemed to burn in his thoughts, her future weighing against each piece that passed through his hands. During his brief lunch break, Marcus called home to check on Tyler. His son answered on the second ring, voice thick. "With sleep. Everything okay there, bud?" "Yeah, Dad, Emma's still studying. I finished my math homework and loaded the dishwasher." "That's my boy." Pride warmed Marcus's voice. "Get some sleep, okay? Love you. Love you too, Dad." The call ended too quickly, leaving Marcus alone in the break room with his thermos of coffee and half-eaten sandwich. On the wall, a new poster announced, "Efficiency is everyone's responsibility," in bold letters. Below it, someone had tacked up a hiring notice from the Amazon warehouse across town. Sarah found him there, staring at the poster. "They're not all like Wilson's," she said quietly. "My daughter's friend works at that tech company downtown, Chen Innovations. They actually care about their people." Marcus managed a tired smile. "Places like that don't hire factory workers, Sarah." "Maybe they should." She checked her watch. "Break's over. Just hang in there, Thompson. Something better will come along." Marcus returned to his station, letting the familiar motions wash over him. Above the assembly line, the industrial clock counted down the hours until dawn. He had to make every minute count. For Emma's dreams, for Tyler's future, for the promise he'd made to Sarah to give their children everything they deserved. In the artificial light of Building C, Marcus Thompson kept working, unaware that in less than 24 hours, everything would change. The midnight hour at Wilson Manufacturing always carried a different quality of silence. Even the machines seemed to breathe differently, their rhythmic movements echoing through empty corridors and out into the loading bay where Marcus was helping. Ramon clear a backed-up conveyor belt. "Almost got it," Ramon muttered, reaching deep into the mechanism. "Someone's gonna lose their job over this maintenance oversight." Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. They were already 20 minutes behind quota, and Jeffrey Morris had made his evening rounds with pointed comments about efficiency. The autumn air leaked through the bay doors, carrying with it the rustling of leaves from the wooded area behind the factory. That's when he heard it, a sound so out of place it stopped his breath. A child's cry, high and frightened, floating in from the darkness. "You hear that?" Marcus straightened, straining to listen. Ramon shook his head, focused on the conveyor. "Probably just the wind. Come on, man, we need to get this line moving." But there it was again, unmistakable this time. A sob followed by a weak call for help. Marcus glanced at the clock mounted above the bay doors, then at the quota counter glowing red with missed targets. Sarah's warning echoed in his mind. 3 unexcused absences in 6 months. Doesn't matter the reason. "I'll be right back," he said, already moving toward the door. "Marcus!" Ramon's urgent whisper followed him. "Morris is due for another walkthrough." "Don't." But Marcus was already outside, flashlight in hand. The beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the gravel path that led to the old bike trail behind the factory. The crying grew louder as he approached the tree line. "Hello?" he called out. "Is someone there? Help." The voice was young, male, scared. "I can't. My leg." Marcus followed the sound, pushing through branches still damp from earlier rain. His beam finally caught a flash of red. A bicycle frame, twisted around a fallen log. Beside it, a boy of about 12 lay curled on his side, tears cutting clean tracks through dirt-smudged cheeks. "I'm here," Marcus said softly, crouching beside the boy. "I'm here. What's your name?" "James." The boy hiccuped. "I was taking a shortcut. Wasn't supposed to be out this late. The front tire hit something." Marcus ran his flashlight over James's leg, noting the awkward angle and swelling around the ankle. "Okay, James, I'm going to help you, but I need you to be brave. Can you do that for me?" The boy nodded, reminding Marcus so much of Tyler that his heart ached. Inside the factory, the shift bell rang, 15 minutes until Morris's inspection. Marcus could see the quota counter through the bay windows, numbers falling further behind with each passing minute. "I'm going to carry you," he decided, carefully sliding one arm under James's knees, the other supporting his back. "Hold on to my neck, okay? Like a piggyback ride, but in front." James whimpered as Marcus lifted him, but managed to wrap his arms around Marcus's neck. The boy was lighter than Tyler, all knees and elbows and trembling fear. "My mom," James gasped between, "Oops, she doesn't know. She's going to be so worried." "We'll call her," Marcus promised, picking his way carefully back through the trees. "You're going to be fine." The loading bay light seemed impossibly bright after the darkness. Ramon's eyes widened as Marcus emerged with his burden. Dios mio. He breathed, already reaching for his phone. "I'll call an ambulance." "Thompson," Jeffrey Morris's voice cracked through the air like a whip. "What the hell is this?" Marcus gently set James down on a nearby packing crate, keeping one steadying hand on the boy's shoulder. "Sir, there was an accident. The boy needed help." "What I see," Morris cut in, "is an unauthorized departure from your station, 15 minutes of missed production, and a liability nightmare." He was already typing on his tablet. "You know the policy on abandoning your post." "He's just a kid," Marcus protested. "He was hurt, alone in the dark, and now you're fired." Morris's words fell like stones in the sudden silence. "Clear out. Your locker. Security will escort you out after the ambulance arrives." In the distance, sirens wailed. James's small hand found Marcus's, squeezing tight. "I'm sorry," the boy whispered. "I'm so sorry." Marcus squeezed back, watching 15 years of dedication disappear with a few taps on Morris's screen. Sarah appeared in the doorway, face stricken, but Morris was already herding her back inside. "Policy is policy," Morris said flatly. "We'll mail your final check." As paramedics rushed in with their equipment and questions, Marcus stood very still, feeling the weight of tomorrow pressed down on his shoulders. Emma's acceptance letter, Tyler's growing needs, the mortgage payment due next week. But watching James being carefully lifted onto a stretcher, Marcus knew with absolute certainty that he would make the same choice again. Some things mattered more than quotas and corporate policies. Some things were worth any price. He just didn't know yet how high that price would be, or how it would change everything. Dawn painted the kitchen walls a soft pink as Marcus sat at the table, his termination notice stark white against the worn wood. He hadn't slept. The events of the night played on endless loop in his mind. James's frightened face, Morris's cold dismissal, Sarah's helpless expression as security walked him out. The coffee had grown cold in his cup when Emma's door creaked open. She appeared in her Stanford sweatshirt, a thrift store find she treasured, hair twisted in a messy bun as she prepared for school. She stopped short when she saw him. "Dad? Why aren't you at work?" The question hung in the air like crystal, fragile, sharp-edged. Marcus pushed the termination notice across the table without a word. Emma read it quickly, her face draining of color. "But they can't. 15 years, Dad. They can't just—" "They can." His voice was rough from hours of silence. "And they did." Tyler appeared in the doorway, already sensing the tension. "What's going on?" "Your father lost his job," Emma said, the paper trembling in her hands, "because he helped an injured kid instead of meeting their stupid quota." Marcus watched his son's face cycle through confusion, anger, and fear. "The boy, was he okay?" "His name is James. Broken ankle, maybe." "Worse." "He was scared, Ty. Same age as you." Marcus tried to smile, but it felt wrong on his face. "I couldn't leave him out there." "Of course you couldn't," Emma's voice cracked. "You never could ignore someone who needed help, just like when Mom—" The words hung unfinished. They all remembered those final months with Sarah, how Marcus had burned through savings and sick days, how he'd worked double shifts to pay for treatments insurance wouldn't cover. "I'll defer college," Emma said suddenly. "Work for a year, save up—" "No!" Marcus's hand came down hard on the table, making them jump. "No, you've worked too hard. Your mother—" He took a breath. "Your mother made me promise you'd have every opportunity, both of you." "But how?" Tyler asked, his young face too serious. "We barely made it with your job." Marcus stood, going through the motions of making breakfast. Routine helped. Routine made sense when nothing else did. "I'll find something else. I've got skills, experience. Sarah, my supervisor, she'll give me a reference." "The Chen Innovations job's fair," Emma said, pulling up her phone. "It's next week. They're hiring for all positions, and their benefits are supposed to be amazing." Marcus cracked eggs into a pan, not meeting her eyes. "Tech companies don't want factory workers, sweetheart. You don't know that, Tyler protested. You could learn computers and stuff. You helped me build my science project robot. A wan smile touched Marcus's lips. Eat your breakfast. You both still have school. Dad, Emma started. One day at a time, he interrupted gently. That's how we got through before. That's how we'll get through now. They ate in silence, the weight of unspoken fears settling around them like dust. Marcus packed their lunches on autopilot, tucking in his daily notes despite the tremor in his hands. When they left for school, Emma hugged him fiercer than usual. I'm proud of you, she whispered, for helping that boy. Mum would be too. Tyler lingered after his sister walked ahead. I can get a paper route, he offered. Billy makes $40 a week. Marcus ruffled his son's hair, heart swelling with love and pain. School is your job right now. Let me handle the rest. He watched them walk away, shoulders straight, despite the new burden they carried. Through the window he could see Mrs. Peterson next door watching with poorly concealed curiosity. News traveled fast in their neighborhood. By noon, everyone would know about Wilson Manufacturing's most recent casualty. The termination notice still lay on the table, official letterhead gleaming. Marcus picked it up, started to crumple it, then smoothed it flat again. Everything had changed in a single night because of a single choice. He didn't regret helping James. He couldn't. But standing in his quiet kitchen, watching the morning light catch on Sarah's old wind chimes, Marcus Thompson felt the ground crumbling beneath 15 years of careful planning, steady work, and modest dreams. He just didn't know yet that sometimes, when things fall apart, they make room for something better to be built. The doorbell rang at precisely 9:47 the next morning. Marcus had been sitting at his laptop, scrolling through job listings that seemed to blur together. Each experience required felt like a door closing, each entry-level position offered. Half his former salary. He opened the front door to find a woman in her early 40s standing on his worn welcome mat. Her charcoal suit probably cost more than his monthly mortgage payment, but it was her eyes that caught his attention. They held the same haunted shadow he sometimes saw in his own mirror, the look of someone who had known loss. Mr. Thompson, her voice was gentle, but carried an undercurrent of authority. I'm Catherine Chen, James's mother. Marcus's heart stuttered. Behind her, a sleek black Tesla sat in his cracked driveway, looking as out of place as its owner. James, is he okay? The question tumbled out before he could think of anything else. A smile softened her features. He's recovering. Clean break, 6 weeks in a cast, but he's alive and safe thanks to you. She paused, studying his face. May I come in? We need to talk. Marcus glanced reflexively at his living room. Threadbare furniture, photos of happier times, Emma's college brochures scattered across the coffee table. Of course, please. Catherine Chen moved with quiet grace, settling into Sarah's old armchair as if she sensed its importance. Her eyes swept the room, lingering on the family. Photos. Your children? Emma and Tyler. Pride crept into his voice despite everything. Emma just got accepted to Stanford. Tyler's in 8th grade. Stanford? Something flickered in her expression. Pre-med. How did you... The brochures. She nodded toward the coffee table. My late husband was chief of surgery there. The words hung between them, heavy with shared understanding. Marcus sat on the couch, hands clasped. I'm sorry for your loss, as I am for yours. Her gaze had found the photo of Sarah above the fireplace. James told me everything about last night, about how you carried him to safety, stayed with him until the ambulance came, even when it cost you your job. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Anyone would have... No. Catherine's voice turned sharp. They wouldn't have. Do you know where James was coming from last night? The cemetery, his father's birthday. She took a breath. He's been having a hard time, sneaking out, taking risks. Last night could have... She stopped, composing herself. But you were there. I'm just glad he's okay. Catherine reached into her briefcase, withdrawing a business card. The Chen Innovations logo gleamed in silver embossing. I'm not just James's mother, Mr. Thompson. I'm the CEO of Chen Innovations, and I've spent the morning looking into your situation at Wilson Manufacturing. Marcus's throat went dry. Mrs. Chen, Catherine, please. She leaned forward. 15 years of exemplary service, perfect attendance until your wife's illness, mentor to new employees. The only write-ups in your file are for excessive attention to safety protocols and prioritizing worker welfare over quotas. A hint of steel entered her voice. Wilson Manufacturing's loss is about to become my gain. I don't understand. I'm offering you a job, Mr. Thompson, Director of Safety and Community Outreach for the Chen Foundation. We're launching a new initiative focused on workplace safety and family support programs. Who better to lead it than someone who exemplifies those very values? Marcus stared at the business card in his hands. I don't have the qualifications for. You have exactly the qualifications I'm looking for. Catherine's eyes held his. Integrity, compassion, the courage to do what's right, regardless of personal cost. The rest can be learned. The salary, he began hesitantly, will be more than adequate for Stanford's room and board. Her slight smile suggested she'd done her homework. Plus full benefits, of course, including college support for dependents. Marcus felt the room tilt slightly. Why? Catherine stood, smoothing her immaculate suit. Because my husband died. Because someone chose protocol over compassion. Because my son lived, because you chose the opposite. She moved to the fireplace, studying Sarah's photo. And because I believe second chances should go to those who earn them through kindness. She turned back to him. The position starts Monday. If you want it, take the weekend to think about it. She reached into her briefcase again, producing a thick envelope. This is an advance, regardless of your decision. For James. I can't. You can. You will. Her tone brooked no argument. Sometimes, Mr. Thompson, angels don't have wings. Sometimes. They're just tired fathers working the night shift, willing to risk everything to help a scared little boy. She moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Mr. Thompson, James would very much like to thank you in person. Perhaps dinner once. You've settled into your new office. The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Marcus alone with a business card that felt like a lifeline and an envelope that felt like redemption. Outside, autumn leaves danced across his driveway as Catherine Chen's Tesla glided away, carrying with it the promise of new beginnings. That evening, Marcus spread everything on the kitchen table. Catherine Chen's business card, the job offer letter, the advance check that made his hands tremble, and a plate of Sarah's favorite chocolate chip cookies that Emma had stress-baked. After school, Director of Safety and Community Outreach, Emma read for the third time, wonder in her voice. Dad, it's like something from a movie. Tyler picked up the business card, running his finger over the raised silver lettering. Chen Innovations is the company that made my school's new computer lab. They're like huge. Exactly. Marcus broke a cookie in half, not eating it. I'm a factory worker. What do I know about running foundation programs? You know about people, Emma said firmly, about doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Isn't that what Mrs. Chen said? Catherine, Marcus corrected automatically, then felt his face warm. At Emma's knowing look, she seemed nice, Tyler offered, reaching for another cookie. When she came by after school to drop off the paperwork, and she said James keeps asking about you. Marcus raised an eyebrow. When did you talk to Catherine Chen? I was shooting hoops when her car pulled up. Tyler shrugged. She asked if I was your son. Said James is really into basketball too, even though he's terrible at it. She thought maybe we could all play sometime once his leg heals. Emma's eyes sparkled with something that made Marcus nervous. She's pretty, isn't she? That's not... Marcus started, then stopped, running a hand through his hair. This isn't about that. This is about whether I'm qualified to handle this kind of responsibility, about whether I'd be letting you both down if I failed, like you let down that kid in the woods. Emma's voice was gentle but firm. Dad, you've Spent 15 years letting a factory grind you down because it was the responsible thing to do. Maybe this is the universe saying it's time for something different. Tyler nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, and the benefits package includes braces. I heard Mrs. Chen tell Emma. Marcus looked sharply at his daughter, who had the grace to blush. She might have stopped by my school too, just to discuss the educational support programs, you know, and maybe Stanford's pre-med requirements. You too? Marcus shook his head, but he was smiling. When did you become the parents here? Someone has to be practical, Emma teased. Now, are you going to call her or should I? Marcus picked up his phone, then set it down again. Your mother, he began, would be the first one telling you to take it, Emma finished softly. You know she would, Dad. Mom always said you were meant for more than that factory. Tyler got up and retrieved a framed photo from the living room, Marcus and Sarah on their wedding day, young and laughing. She'd want you to be happy again. Both of you were always happiest helping people. Marcus stared at the photo, at Sarah's radiant smile. She would have loved this moment, would have already been planning how to use the Foundation's resources to help other families facing medical crises. James's father was a surgeon, he said quietly. Catherine lost him 2 years ago. That's why James was at the cemetery that night. Emma's hand found his across the table. Maybe that's why this happened, Dad. Maybe you were both supposed to find each other. Not just you and Mrs. Chen, she added quickly. James and Tyler, all of us. The salary. Marcus looked at the offer letter again. It's more than double what I made at Wilson's. With the education benefits. Stanford, Emma whispered. Hope creeping into her voice. Braces, Tyler grinned, then more seriously. And maybe James needs someone who understands about losing a parent. Marcus looked at his children, Emma's quiet strength, Tyler's growing wisdom, and felt something shift in his chest. A door opening, perhaps, or a weight lifting. He picked up his phone again, and this time he didn't put it down. Catherine Chen answered on the second ring. Mr. Thompson. Her voice carried a smile. I was hoping to hear from you. Marcus, he corrected gently. And I'd like to accept the position. If the offer still stands, it does. A pause. James will be thrilled. He's already planning to show Tyler his basketball collection. Marcus caught his children exchanging delighted looks. About that dinner you mentioned. In the living room, Sarah's wind chimes tinkled softly, stirred by an evening breeze. It sounded, just for a moment, like laughter. The Chen Innovations headquarters rose like a crystal formation against the morning sky, all glass and gleaming steel. Marcus adjusted his new tie, Emma's insistence, and tried not to feel like an imposter as he approached the entrance. His ID badge, with its crisp photo and Director of Safety and Community Outreach title, felt foreign against his chest. Mr. Thompson, a young woman in a sleek pantsuit, waved from the lobby desk. I'm Jenny Park, Mrs. Chen's executive assistant. We've been expecting you. The lobby itself was a study in contrasts. Modern architecture framed walls covered in children's artwork, bright splashes of crayon and paint depicting families, homes, and what looked like scientific innovations through young eyes. The Chen Foundation partners with local schools, Jenny explained, following his gaze. Mrs. Chen believes in nurturing creativity alongside innovation. She gestured toward the elevators. Shall we? Your team is eager to meet you. My team, Marcus thought, his stomach doing a slow roll. The elevator rose smoothly to the 15th floor, its back wall a window offering expanding views of the city. Through here? Jenny led him into a warm, open-plan office space. Unlike Wilson's harsh fluorescence, natural light flooded the area. Plants thrived on desks and windowsills, and more children's artwork brightened the walls. 5 people stood as they entered, forming a loose semicircle. Jenny made the introductions. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, our child safety expert. Tom Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, our community liaison. Dr. Sarah Williams, Family Support Services. Michael O'Brien, Workplace Safety Consultant. And Lisa Thompson. No relation to you either. Our program coordinator? Marcus shook hands, trying to memorize faces and roles. They seemed genuinely pleased to meet him, nothing like the wary competition he'd known at Wilson's. We've heard about what you did for James, Maria said warmly. That's exactly the kind of instinct we need here. Speaking of, a familiar voice came from behind them. Chen stood in the doorway, looking somehow both professional and approachable in a blue dress. How are you settling in, Marcus? It's different, he admitted. Good different, she smiled. Join me for a coffee? I'd like to show you something. They took their coffee to a small conference room with a view of the park across the street. One wall held a large touch screen displaying various community projects and statistics. The Chen Foundation started after my husband died, Catherine said quietly, touching the screen. Images shifted to show a hospital wing, children's programs, workplace safety initiatives. Daniel believed in using privilege to create change. When we lost him, this became his legacy. Marcus watched her face, seeing the same mix of grief and purpose he'd felt, building Sarah's Memorial Scholarship Fund. The safety programs you mentioned are just the beginning. She turned to face him. Marcus, what happened at Wilson Manufacturing? It happens everywhere. Workers forced to choose between humanity and policy, families stretched to breaking point by medical bills, children losing parents because someone decided profit margins mattered more than safety protocols. Her passion was contagious. Marcus found himself leaning forward, ideas he'd held back for years at Wilson's suddenly flowing freely. There needs to be a buffer program, something to protect workers who make emergency choices, and family support that kicks in immediately, not after mountains of paperwork. Exactly, Catherine's eyes lit up. That's exactly what we need. Someone who's lived it, who understands both sides. She pulled up another screen. I want you to design it. Your first project. Full creative. Control whatever resources you need. Marcus blinked. But I've never... Stop! Catherine's hand covered his where it rested on the table. Stop telling me what you've never done. Tell me what you're going to do. The warmth of her hand, the challenge in her eyes, the hope in her voice. It all combined to unlock something in Marcus's chest. 15 years of suppressed ideas, of watching people struggle under impossible choices, of wishing he could do more. A comprehensive safety net, he said slowly, starting with emergency response protocols that prioritize human needs over quotas, then immediate family support, not just financial, but practical, childcare, counseling, advocacy. He was standing now, moving to the touchscreen, ideas flowing faster than he could organize them. Catherine watched him with a smile that held equal parts triumph and tenderness. This is why I chose you, she said softly, not because you helped James, but because you understand what people need. You've lived it. A knock at the door interrupted them. Jenny poked her head in. Sorry, but Marcus's team is ready for the orientation meeting. And James is on line 1, something about basketball with Tyler this weekend? Marcus felt himself flush. But Catherine just laughed. Go, she said. Lead your team. Change lives. We'll discuss basketball later. As he followed Jenny out, Marcus glanced back. Catherine had turned to the window, but he caught her reflection in the glass, and the soft smile that suggested basketball wouldn't be the only topic of their next conversation. For the first time since Sarah's death, the future felt not just possible, but bright. 2 weeks into his new role, Marcus found himself staring at a PowerPoint presentation that refused to cooperate. The quarterly board meeting was tomorrow, and despite his team's patient tutorials, the technology still felt like a foreign language. Need help? Dr. Maria Rodriguez appeared at his office door, reading glasses perched on her head. I was the same way when I switched from clinical practice to corporate work. Marcus ran a hand over his face. That obvious, huh? Let's just say I recognize the death by PowerPoint expression. She pulled up a chair. You know, your ideas are solid. The presentation is just window dressing. Together, they simplified the slides. Maria showing him how to let the statistics and real-world examples carry the message. His first major initiative, the Emergency Response Protection Program, was taking shape, built from 15 years of front-line experience. "There," Maria said finally. "Now it looks as good as it sounds." She paused, studying him. "You're doing better than you think, Marcus. The team believes in you." Before he could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Stanford housing forms due Friday. Also, Tyler won't admit it, but he's nervous about dinner with James tonight. Everything." "Okay?" Maria asked, noting his distracted expression. "Just juggling. Emma's college paperwork, Tyler's first real friendship since his mom died, this presentation." He gestured at the screen. "Ah, the famous Chen family dinner?" Maria's eyes twinkled. "Catherine's been just as nervous. You—" "No. Kept changing the restaurant reservation." Marcus looked up sharply. "She has?" "Mm-hmm. 3 times. Apparently, finding a place that's casual enough for teenagers but nice enough for—" Well, she didn't finish that sentence. The warmth that spread through Marcus's chest was becoming familiar whenever Catherine was mentioned. Their interactions over the past 2 weeks had been professional, but charged with something more. Shared glances, lingering conversations about more than work. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Lisa Thompson stuck her head in. Emergency at the Watson factory. Their safety protocols failed inspection, and they're threatening mass layoffs in retaliation. Marcus stood, workplace instincts kicking in. "Get me their specs and employee statistics. Maria, can you—" "Already pulling their safety records," she finished, fingers flying over her tablet. "Want me to call Catherine?" "No, let me handle this first." Marcus grabbed his jacket. "If we can present a solution before it hits her desk." "Now you're thinking like a director," Lisa approved. "Cars waiting downstairs." The next few hours were a blur of negotiations, site inspections, and rapid-fire problem-solving. Marcus found himself drawing on both his factory experience and his new resources, bridging worlds he hadn't known could connect. By late afternoon, he had a compromise. Chen Foundation would fund the safety upgrades through their new program, Watson would maintain full employment, and their workers would get additional training and protection. He was reviewing the final agreement when Catherine appeared in the Watson conference room doorway. "I heard you saved a few hundred jobs today. I just showed them a better way," Marcus said, suddenly self-conscious. "Used what I learned at Wilson's, but with actual power to change things this time. That's called leadership." She moved closer, examining the documents spread across the table. "The board will be impressed tomorrow. I certainly am." Their eyes met, and for a moment the air felt charged with unspoken possibilities. Then Catherine glanced at her watch. "Speaking of tomorrow, maybe we should cancel dinner tonight. Give you time to prepare." "No," Marcus said quickly, surprising himself. "I mean, Tyler's been talking about nothing else all week, and James has been equally excited." Catherine finished, smiling. "You're right. Some things are more important than work." She straightened his slightly rumpled tie, her touch light, but deliberate. 7 o'clock then. I know a great Italian place that's casual enough for teenagers, but nice enough for a first dinner together," Marcus suggested innocently. Catherine's cheeks colored slightly. "Maria talks too much." But she was still smiling as she left. Marcus gathered his papers, thinking about how much had changed in 2 weeks. Tonight, dinner with a family that somehow already felt connected to his own. Tomorrow, his first board presentation. And through it all, the growing sense that Sarah had been right. He was meant for more than the factory floor. He just hadn't expected more to feel so much like coming home. Tuscany's occupied a converted Victorian mansion on the edge of downtown, its warm lights spilling onto the wraparound porch. Marcus adjusted Tyler's collar in the parking lot, his son squirming like he was 8 instead of 13. "Dad, stop fussing. I look fine." "Sorry." Marcus stepped back, recognizing his own nervousness in his fidgeting. "Just want everything to be perfect." Emma supplied helpfully, smoothing her own dress. "Relax, Dad. It's just dinner." But they all knew it wasn't just anything. This was their first real social evening with the Chens, away from the context of work and hospital visits. James's cast was coming off next week, and Tyler had been texting him daily about future basketball plans. Catherine and James were already seated when the hostess led them to a corner table draped in crisp white linen. Candlelight softened the elegant space, making it feel intimate despite the restaurant's size. James brightened visibly when he saw Tyler shifting to make room. "I saved you a seat," he said eagerly. "Mom got us the corner booth so we can talk about the new NBA game without bothering everyone." Catherine stood to greet them, and Marcus felt his breath catch slightly. She'd traded her usual business attire for a deep blue dress that made her eyes sparkle. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "I ordered appetizers. The boys were starving." "Teenagers usually are," Marcus smiled, helping Emma with her chair before settling beside Catherine. Their shoulders brushed as they sat, sending a small current through him. "Stanford pre-med?" Catherine asked Emma after their drink orders were taken. "That was Daniel's program. He would have loved to tell you about it." "Dad mentioned your husband was chief of surgery there," Emma said carefully, watching Catherine's face. "He was." Catherine's hand drifted to her neck, where a simple gold chain held what Marcus guessed was a wedding ring. He believed in medicine as a calling, not just a career. Even after he became department head, he still did rounds, still knew every patient's name. "Like Mom," Tyler said suddenly. The table went quiet. "She knew all her students' names, even when she was really sick. Said it mattered that they felt seen." James looked up from the menu he and Tyler had been sharing. "My dad was like that too. Even when he was super busy, he'd make time to shoot hoops with me, even though he was terrible at it." He grinned at the memory. "Absolutely dreadful," Catherine agreed, her smile bittersweet. "But he never missed a game. Mom came to all my science fairs," Emma offered. "Made Dad switch shifts so she could be there." Marcus felt Catherine's hand find his under the table, a gentle squeeze of understanding. Their children were building bridges between their losses, turning shared pain into connection. The waiter arrived with appetizers, crispy calamari, bruschetta, and something with mushrooms that made Tyler wrinkle his nose until James convinced him to try it. "So," Catherine said softly while the kids debated the merits of various pasta dishes. "Ready for tomorrow's board meeting?" "As I'll ever be." Marcus watched Emma helping James navigate his menu around his cast. "Thank you, by the way, for all of this. The dinner, it's just—" "No," he interrupted gently, "for seeing something in me I'd forgotten was there, for giving my kids their future back, for—" He gestured at their children, already falling into the easy rhythms of family. "For this." Catherine's eyes met his, holding secrets and possibilities. "I should be thanking you. James hasn't smiled this much since—" She swallowed. "Let's just say some angels work the night shift and some wear slightly crooked ties." Marcus glanced down at his tie, chagrined. Emma tried to fix it 3 times. "I like it." Catherine reached over, deliberately adjusting the tie so it was even more askew. Perfect imperfection. The evening flowed like the wine in their glasses, rich, warm, and full of promise. The boys traded stories about school and sports, their heads bent together over James's phone as they planned future games. Emma and Catherine discussed Stanford's medical program, their conversation peppered with memories of Daniel's teaching days and Sarah's influence on Emma's dreams. When dessert arrived, tiramisu and gelato that had Tyler's eyes widening, Marcus realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this content. The stress of tomorrow's presentation seemed distant, overshadowed by the way Catherine's laugh made her whole face light up, by the sight of their children fitting together like puzzle pieces meant to find each other. "Dad," Tyler whispered as they were leaving, James hobbling beside him on his crutches. "Can we do this again? Like, regularly?" Ahead of them, Catherine was helping Emma with her coat, their heads close together as they shared some private joke. She looked up, catching Marcus's eye, and in that moment he knew this wasn't just dinner. This was the beginning of something they'd all been waiting for without knowing it. "Yeah," he said, watching their families merge into the warm night. "I think we can arrange that." The headline blazed across Marcus's tablet screen during his morning coffee. "Tech mogul's new romance, charity or chemistry." Below it, a grainy photo showed Catherine helping him with his tie outside Tuscany's, their faces close, smiles intimate. The article beneath was worse, full of insinuations about corporate favoritism and questioning his qualifications. His phone buzzed. Jenny Park. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. Mrs. Chen's trying to get it taken down, but it's already trending. The board's called an emergency meeting." Another buzz. Emma. "Dad, people at school are talking. Some reporters tried to ask me questions in the parking lot." A third message from Catherine. "Don't read the comments. We'll handle this. Trust me." Marcus set his phone down, hands shaking slightly. The past month had been almost perfect. His emergency response program was showing promising results. Tyler and James had become inseparable, and his relationship with Catherine had grown into something precious and private. Until now, the Chen Innovations lobby was unusually quiet when he arrived. Faces turned away as he passed, conversations dropping to whispers. Jenny met him at the elevator, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by worried professionalism. "The board's in the main conference room," she said, hurrying beside him. "They're concerned about public perception. Mr. Harrison particularly." The chairman, Marcus remembered. Catherine had mentioned him. Old money, older ideas about corporate image. The conference room doors opened to reveal Catherine already there, spine straight as steel, facing down 6 stern-faced board members. She turned as Marcus entered, her eyes conveying both warning and support. "Mr. Thompson," Harrison's voice carried decades of boardroom authority. "Perhaps you can explain how your personal relationship with Mrs. Chen affects your ability to manage foundation resources objectively." "With respect, sir," Marcus kept his voice steady, "my work record speaks for itself. The emergency response program has already helped 3 companies implement better safety protocols. We've prevented layoffs, improved working conditions, all while dating the CEO." Another board member cut in. "The optics are problematic. It suggests impropriety." "The only impropriety," Catherine's voice was razor-sharp, "is suggesting that Marcus's exceptional work is somehow diminished by our personal connection. A connection, I might add, that developed after his hiring and has nothing to do with his professional capabilities." "Catherine," Harrison sighed, "be reasonable. The media is painting this as a fairy tale romance. The wealthy widow and the factory worker she rescued. It undermines the foundation's credibility." Marcus felt something snap inside him. "You want to talk about credibility? Let's talk about the real story. A single father loses his job for helping an injured child. A grieving mother recognizes that sometimes the most qualified person isn't the one with the fanciest degree, but the one who's lived the reality we're trying to change. 2 families find healing together. That's not a fairy tale. It's proof that your foundation's mission actually works." The room fell silent. Catherine's hand found his under the table, squeezing tight. "The media attention," Harrison began, "could be an asset," Marcus continued, warming to his theme. "Show how Chen Innovations doesn't just talk about breaking down barriers, we live it. Make it about second chances, about valuing real-world experience, about helping families rebuild." A younger board member leaned forward. "He has a point. This could align perfectly with our community integration initiatives. And Marcus's background adds authenticity to our workplace reform programs," another added. "The media coverage might actually help spread awareness." Harrison looked between Marcus and Catherine, his expression softening slightly. "You truly believe in this foundation's mission, don't you, Thompson?" "I believe in what we're building." "Here," Marcus answered, thinking of Sarah's dedication to her students, of Daniel's commitment to patient care. All of it. The chairman was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Handle the press carefully. Keep the focus on the Foundation's work." And a ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Maybe be more discreet about public tie adjustments." Later, in Catherine's office, she touched his cheek gently. "You stood up to the board of directors for us, for all of us," Marcus corrected, thinking of their children, their shared future. "Some things are worth fighting for." Her smile held pride, affection, and something deeper. "Yes," she said softly, "they are." The next week unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Catherine's PR team transformed the media narrative, arranging a series of interviews that highlighted the Foundation's success stories. Marcus found himself in front of cameras, not as Catherine Chen's romantic interest, but as the face of workplace reform. "Tell us about the Emergency Response Protection Program," the interviewer from Business Weekly asked, her expression genuinely interested. "It started with a simple idea," Marcus explained, feeling more comfortable in front of the cameras than he'd expected. "Every day, workers face impossible choices between company policy and basic humanity. We're creating a safety net that ensures they never have to choose." The story ran alongside profiles of families the program had helped, single parents who'd kept their jobs during family emergencies, workers whose safety concerns had been addressed without fear of retaliation. The Foundation's phone lines lit up with companies wanting to implement similar protocols. But it was Tyler's school presentation that truly changed the narrative. "My dad," Tyler stood before his 8th grade class, his voice clear and confident, "lost his job because he chose to help someone. He found my friend James hurt in the woods and carried him to safety. He knew he'd miss his quota. He knew he might get fired. He did it anyway." The video, recorded by his teacher and shared with parental permission, went viral overnight. Millions watched as Tyler explained how his father's choice had led to positive change. "Now he runs programs that help other families," Tyler continued. "He and James's mom make sure no other kid has to worry about their parents losing jobs for doing the right thing." And he paused, looking directly at the camera. "They showed us that sometimes the worst things that happen can lead to the best things in life." Catherine found Marcus in his office after the video hit 2 million views. "Your son," she said, perching on his desk, "is quite the spokesperson. He gets his subtlety from his mother." Marcus smiled, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. "Did you see the comments? About how Chen Innovations is setting a new standard for corporate responsibility? About how our fairy tale is inspiring other companies to revisit their human resources policies?" She leaned closer. "Or about how your handsome son and my accident-prone James are giving hope to other blended families?" "All of it," Marcus admitted. "It's like Tyler found the words I've been trying to say all along." A knock interrupted them. Dr. Maria Rodriguez entered, waving a tablet. "You need to see this. The Watson factory implementation results just came in. Workplace accidents down 60%, productivity up, employee retention at record levels." "Perfect timing," Catherine smiled. "The board meeting's in an hour." The boardroom felt different this time. Harrison and the others sat straighter, their expressions open and engaged as Marcus presented the data. The emergency response program was working beyond their highest projections. "But numbers only tell part of the story," Marcus said, clicking to his final slide. "This is about people, about changing corporate culture from the ground up." The screen filled with photographs. Workers with their families, safety training sessions, community outreach events. And there, in the center, a simple shot of Tyler and James playing basketball in Catherine's driveway, both laughing as Emma tried to referee. "Our foundation doesn't just talk about family values," Marcus continued. "We live them. Every policy we implement, every program we design, comes from understanding what families really need to thrive." Catherine stood, moving to his side. "Marcus," Bring something invaluable to our organization, authentic experience. He's lived the challenges our programs address. That perspective, combined with our resources, she looked at Harrison. It's why the media attention has been a gift. People see themselves in this story. Harrison nodded slowly. The public response has been remarkable. Other companies are asking about implementing our programs. The foundations. Her profile has never been higher because it's real, Marcus said simply. Everything we're doing, everything we're building, it's grounded in real lives, real needs, and real love. A female board member added softly, glancing between Marcus and Catherine. Sometimes the best business decisions come from the heart. The meeting ended with unanimous approval for expanding the emergency response program nationwide. As other board members filed out, Harrison lingered. "Thompson," he said gruffly, "about last week, I was wrong. What you and Catherine have, it's an asset to this foundation. It proves we practice what we preach about second chances and family values." After he left, Catherine turned to Marcus. "Well, Director Thompson, it seems you've won over our biggest critic." "We did," he corrected, taking her hand. "All of us, Tyler and James, Emma's Stanford dreams, your vision for the foundation, my experience, it all fits together, like it was meant to," Catherine agreed. "Speaking of fitting together, the boys want to try that new pizza place tonight. Emma's bringing her pre-med study group." Marcus pulled her closer, professional boundaries blurring now that they were alone. "Sounds perfect," because it was. Not the fairy tale the media wanted, but something better. A real story about family, healing, and the kind of love that builds bridges between worlds. Thanksgiving preparations filled Catherine's kitchen with warmth and familiar chaos. Emma stood at the island, teaching James how to properly crimp pie crust edges, a skill Sarah had passed down to her. Tyler hovered nearby, stealing bits of apple filling when he thought no one was looking. "Mom used to let me lick the spoon," James said, carefully folding the dough. Dad would pretend to be upset about germs, but he always ended up sneaking tastes too. "Our mom was the same way," Emma smiled, adjusting his technique. She said dessert wasn't just about eating. It was about making memories. From the doorway, Marcus watched Catherine supervising the scene. Her designer dress protected by one of Sarah's old aprons they'd found in his kitchen. The sight squeezed his heart in the best way possible. "They're good together," Catherine said softly, joining him. "All of them." 3 months had passed since the media storm, and their families had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Weekend dinners, shared homework sessions, impromptu basketball games in Catherine's driveway. The kids moved between their homes with easy familiarity. James asked if he could come to Mom's memorial service next week, Tyler said later, helping Marcus. "Set the dining room table. Is that okay?" Marcus paused, a plate halfway to its place setting. Sarah's birthday was always hard, but the kids had insisted on maintaining their tradition of visiting her grave and sharing memories. "Of course it's okay," he said finally. "Your mom would have loved him. Both of them. Catherine too." Tyler's question was casual, but his eyes were serious. "Yeah," Marcus smiled, thinking of how Catherine had asked about Sarah, had encouraged the kids to talk about their mother, had never tried to replace her memory. Catherine too. The doorbell rang. Emma's boyfriend Michael, a pre-med student, Catherine had introduced her to through her Stanford connections. They'd been dating for a month, and Marcus appreciated how the boy always arrived exactly on time and looked him in the eye. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mr. Thompson," Michael said earnestly. "Mrs. Chen, these are for you." He handed Catherine a bouquet of fall flowers. "Suck up," James stage whispered to Tyler, making both boys snicker until Emma shot them a look. Dinner was a beautiful chaos of past dishes and overlapping conversations. Catherine had insisted on using Sarah's stuffing recipe, while Marcus had attempted Daniel's famous cranberry sauce. Neither dish was quite like the originals, but that felt right somehow. Old traditions blending with new ones, creating something uniquely theirs. "Before we eat," Catherine said, raising her glass. "I'd like to toast absent friends." Her eyes met Marcus's across the table. "And new family." "To Mom," Emma and Tyler said softly. "To Dad," James echoed. "To love that grows," Catherine added, her free hand finding Marcus's. Later, after the dishes were cleared and the kids had retreated to the family room for movies, Marcus found Catherine in the kitchen, putting away leftovers. "Sarah would have loved this," he said quietly. All the noise, the kids laughing, the house full of life again. Catherine leaned back against him. Daniel too. He always said a home needed chaos to feel right. She turned in his arms. "Thank you for sharing her with us, for letting us be part of her memory. Thank you for making new memories," he answered. "For helping the kids heal, for—" He gestured at the kitchen where traces of their meal lingered. James's slightly lopsided pie, Tyler's careful place cards, Emma teaching Michael about their family traditions. From the family room came sudden laughter, Tyler apparently trying to teach James and Michael some complicated handshake he'd invented. Emma's voice rose in mock exasperation, followed by more laughter. "Listen to that," Catherine smiled. "That's the sound of walls coming down, of hearts opening up." Marcus pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of Sarah's apron mixed with Catherine's, and perfume. In that moment, he felt the presence of all they'd lost and all they'd found, weaving together into something stronger than grief, bigger than memory. "Happy Thanksgiving," he whispered against her hair. "Happy new beginning," she answered. In the family room, their children's laughter continued, building bridges between past and future, loss and love, ending and beginning, creating their own kind of perfect chaos. The conference room at the Seattle Convention Center hummed with anticipation. Marcus stood at the podium, surveying the crowd of corporate executives and HR directors who had come to learn about the Chen Foundation's revolutionary workplace safety programs. 6 months ago, the idea of addressing hundreds of business leaders would have terrified him. Now it felt right. 357, he began, letting the number hang in the air. That's how many families almost lost everything last year because their employers forced them to choose between compassion and compliance. 357 workers who faced termination for helping others, for choosing humanity over policy. He clicked to the next slide, faces of people whose jobs the foundation had saved, whose lives they'd changed. But here's a better. Number 0. That's how many families faced that choice after implementing our emergency response protection program. 0 workers punished for doing the right thing. In the front row, Catherine sat with the board members, her proud smile giving him strength. Behind her, his team watched with similar expressions, Maria, Tom, Sarah, Michael and Lisa, who had become more than colleagues over the past months. "When I stood in that factory parking lot 6 months ago, jobless because I helped an injured child, I thought I'd lost everything," Marcus continued. "Instead, I found my purpose. Today, I'm here to help you find yours." The presentation flowed smoothly. Statistics, success stories, implementation strategies. Marcus moved confidently through complex policy proposals that once would have seemed foreign to him, drawing on his unique perspective to bridge the gap between corporate interests and human needs. "The bottom line isn't just about profits," he concluded, "it's about people. When we invest in humanity, the returns are immeasurable." The standing ovation that followed felt surreal. As business leaders crowded around him afterward, eager to implement his programs, Marcus caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd. "Sarah?" His former supervisor from Wilson Manufacturing moved through the crowd toward him. "What are you doing here?" "I'm with Anderson Industries now," she smiled. "They bought out Wilson's last month, and guess what? They want to implement your programs company-wide. The factory is being completely restructured. New safety protocols, family first. Policies." Her eyes twinkled. "They're looking for someone to oversee the transition, someone who knows the floor and understands the new way of doing things." Before Marcus could respond, Harrison appeared at his elbow. "Thompson, The governor wants to discuss implementing your program at the state level and the national safety. Council is interested in making it a federal standard. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings, handshakes, and possibilities. By evening, Marcus's head spun with the scale of what they were building. He found Catherine in her office, reviewing the day's commitments. "The foundation's going to need a new wing just to handle the program requests," she said, looking up as he entered. "You've started a movement, Marcus." "We started it," he corrected, sinking into the chair across from her desk. "You saw the possibility, gave me the chance to make it real." "I saw you," she said simply. "The rest was just getting others to see. What I already knew was there." She paused, shuffling some papers. "The board met while you were in your last session. They voted to create a new position, Executive Director of Workplace Innovation and Family Advocacy." Marcus's breath caught. "Catherine, it's not nepotism," she said firmly. "It's recognition of what you've built." The vote was unanimous. Even Harrison insisted. A knock interrupted them. Jenny poked her head in. "Sorry, but you both need to see this." She handed them her tablet, open to a news site. The headline read, "Chen Foundation Revolution, How One Man's Choice Created a National Movement for Worker Rights." Below it was a photo of Marcus helping James out of Catherine's car, taken the day after his accident. The article traced the journey from that night to today's conference, highlighting the foundation's expanding influence and the lives changed. "They're calling it the Thompson effect," Jenny grinned, "when compassion meets corporate policy and actually wins." After she left, Catherine moved around her desk to perch beside Marcus, reading the article over his shoulder. "The Thompson effect," she mused, "has a nice ring to it." "Seems surreal," he admitted. 6 months ago I was working the night shift, counting minutes, trying to keep my head down. Now you're changing the world," she finished, "while still being the same man who stopped to help a scared boy in the dark." Her hand found his. "The same man who taught my son to trust again, who helped me remember how to laugh." Marcus pulled her closer, professional boundaries forgotten in the empty office. "We helped each other remember," he said softly. "That's what family does." Because that's what they had become, at home and at work. A family built on second chances, growing stronger with every life they touched, every policy they changed, every bridge they built between the world that was and the world that could be. The Thompson effect indeed. Catherine found the note tucked into her morning briefing papers, Marcus's familiar handwriting bringing an immediate smile. "Meet me at Sarah's bench. Lunch today." The memorial bench in the park across from Chen Innovations had become their special place over the past months, a quiet spot where their past and present seemed to meet. She arrived to find Marcus already there, 2 takeout containers from their favorite cafe beside him. The December air was crisp, but the winter sun made the spot welcoming. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, settling beside him. "They're worth at least a quarter today," he smiled, but she caught the underlying tension in his voice. "I had an interesting conversation with James this morning." Catherine's heart skipped. "Oh?" He asked if I was going to be his dad soon, officially. Marcus turned to face her, his eyes serious. Said he and Tyler had been talking about it. "Apparently, they've noticed we're completely obvious about our feelings." "Out of the mouths of babes," Catherine said softly, thinking of the conversation she'd had with Emma just yesterday. Her future stepdaughter had been helping her choose a Christmas gift for Marcus when she'd casually mentioned wedding color preferences. "I've been thinking," Marcus continued, taking her hand, "about Daniel, about Sarah, about how love doesn't always follow the paths we expect." Catherine's free hand went to her neck, where Daniel's ring still hung on its chain. "I've been thinking about that too, about how loving again doesn't mean loving less. Sarah used to say that hearts are like houses," Marcus said quietly. "You can always build on more rooms without tearing down the old ones." A young couple passed by, pushing a stroller. Catherine watched them, remembering similar walks with Daniel, seeing the echo of those memories in Marcus's eyes when he watched young families. James keeps your photos of Daniel up, Marcus observed. Just like Tyler and Emma with Sarah's. They're teaching us something, aren't they? About how to hold both past and future. They're braver than we are sometimes, Catherine agreed. More. Willing to just love without questioning it. Marcus shifted, pulling something from his pocket, a small, well-worn notebook. I've been writing things down. Moments when I realize I'm ready, like when you wear Sarah's apron in the kitchen, or when I catch you touching Daniel's ring while watching James play basketball. The same way Sarah used to touch her necklace. At Tyler's games, he opened the notebook, pages filled with his handwriting. When you knew exactly which flowers to bring to Sarah's grave. When I understood why you still keep Daniel's coffee mug in your office. Little moments when I realized, loving you doesn't diminish loving her. It honors everything she taught me about love. Catherine's vision blurred. Marcus, I'm not asking yet, he said gently. Not officially, but I wanted you to know I'm ready. That I understand now how a heart can hold everything, past, present, future. All the love, all the memories, all the possibilities. The kids are way ahead of us, aren't they? Catherine laughed softly, wiping her eyes. Miles ahead, Tyler's already planning where his drum set would fit in your house. And James left a real estate listing for a bigger place on my desk, subtly marked with a highlighter. Emma's been dropping hints about wedding venues. Apparently the botanical gardens are perfect in spring. Marcus's thumb traced circles on her palm. Spring's nice. It is. Catherine leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence. Daniel would have liked you, you know. Your dedication to family, your integrity. The way you've helped James heal. Sarah would have loved you, Marcus responded. Your strength, your compassion. The way you've given Emma her dreams back. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the world pass by. Catherine thought about the ring in her desk drawer. Daniel's mother's ring, the one he'd always said should be passed down when the time was right. She thought about how right it would look on Marcus's hand. So, she said finally, not asking officially yet? Not yet. He kissed her temple. But soon, when the moment's perfect. And what makes a perfect moment? Marcus smiled, pulling her closer. When we're all together, when it feels like both a beginning and a continuation, when it honors everything we've been and everything we're becoming. Soon then, Catherine agreed, thinking of Christmas approaching, of their families already intertwined, of love that built new rooms without tearing down memories. Soon, Marcus echoed, his voice full of promise. Christmas Eve transformed Catherine's living room into a warm haven of twinkling lights and cherished ornaments. The tree bore decorations from both families, delicate glass balls that Daniel had collected, handmade ornaments from Sarah's classroom years, new ones the children had chosen together. The blending of their histories hung in sparkling harmony. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching Emma help James hang the last of the garland, while Tyler meticulously arranged presents underneath. The scene before him felt both perfectly natural and quietly miraculous. In his pocket, a small velvet box carried the weight of past and future. Everything's ready, Emma whispered as she passed him, squeezing his arm. She'd helped him plan every detail, down to the careful placement of Sarah's favorite Christmas angel at the top of the tree. Catherine appeared from the kitchen, carrying a tray of hot chocolate. Sarah's recipe, made with real chocolate and a pinch of cinnamon. She'd taken to making it exactly as the kids remembered, another small way she honored their mother's memory while creating new traditions. Before we start our Christmas Eve traditions, Marcus said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, I'd like to share something with all of you. 4 pairs of eyes turned to him expectantly. He moved to the tree, reaching beneath it for a large, flat package he'd hidden earlier. This is for all of us, he said, placing it on the coffee table. Catherine, would you do the honors? She sat on the couch, the kids gathering around as she carefully unwrapped the present. Inside was a beautifully bound photo album, its cover reading simply, Our Family. Open it, Marcus encouraged softly. The first page held 2 wedding photos, Sarah and Marcus, young and glowing, Catherine and Daniel laughing at their garden ceremony. Opposite them were recent pictures, James and Tyler at their basketball game, Emma tutoring James in chemistry, Catherine teaching Tyler to make Daniel's famous pancakes. "Keep going," Marcus said, as Catherine's fingers traced the images. Each page told their story. Newspaper clippings about the foundation, family dinner photos, candid shots of their growing bonds. The children's faces shifted from tentative to joyful as the pages turned, showing the gradual healing and connection. Near the end, Catherine found a handwritten letter. Her hands trembled slightly as she read aloud, "Dear Sarah and Daniel, your love shaped us, taught us how to be parents, showed us what matters most. You gave us the strength to find each other, to help our children heal, to believe in second chances. Everything we're building now honors what you built first. We keep your memories alive in every story we tell, every tradition we continue, every lesson we pass on. And now, with your blessing, we want to build something new, not to replace what was, but to add another room in our hearts, another branch to our family tree." Catherine's voice caught as she turned the page to find another letter, this one in her own handwriting, the one she'd written to Daniel just last week, the one she'd left at his grave. Marcus had somehow retrieved it, placing it carefully opposite. His letter to Sarah. The kids were very quiet now, understanding the magnitude of the moment. James slipped his hand into Tyler's, while Emma wrapped an arm around each of her brothers. Marcus knelt beside the couch, taking Catherine's hands in his. "You once told me that some angels work the night shift," he said softly. "I think some angels work in other ways too, bringing people together, healing broken hearts, showing us that love multiplies rather than divides." The velvet box appeared. In his hands. "Catherine Chen, you and James helped my children believe in joy again. You helped me remember how to dream. Will you help me build this new chapter of our story? Will you marry me?" Inside the box, 2 rings nestled together, Daniel's mother's ring that Catherine had been saving, and Sarah's mother's ring that Emma had helped him retrieve from the safety deposit box. 2 family legacies, ready to write a new story. "Yes," Catherine whispered, tears falling freely now. "Yes to all of it, to blending our families, to honoring our past, to building our future." The children erupted in cheers and hugs, their careful composure breaking into pure joy as Marcus slipped Sarah's ring onto Catherine's finger. She reached into her own pocket and placed Daniel's ring on his. "We've been planning this for weeks," Emma admitted, grinning. "All of us. The letters, the photos, the rings, even the hot chocolate," Tyler added proudly. "We wanted everything to be perfect." "It is perfect," Marcus said, gathering them. "All close, because it's real, because it honors everything we've been through and everything we're becoming." James picked up the photo album, turning to the last pages, blank ones waiting to be filled. "Room for new memories," he said softly. "And old ones too," Catherine added, touching the wedding photos on the first page. All of it together exactly, as it should be. Outside, snow began to fall, adding magic to the Christmas Eve air. Inside, 2 families became one, surrounded by twinkling lights and treasured ornaments, bound together by love that had enough room for every memory, every hope, every dream of what was yet to come. 1 year later, the Thompson-Chen household buzzed with the controlled chaos of a Sunday morning. Marcus stood at the kitchen island, packing snacks for the Foundation's annual family picnic, while Catherine finished a video call with Emma from Stanford. "Your sister's presentation on medical ethics went perfectly," Catherine reported, ending the call. "The professor said her perspective on family-centered healthcare policies was revolutionary." "That's because she lived it," Marcus smiled, adding another sandwich to the cooler. "Both sides of it. Speaking of which, how's the Foundation's new medical support initiative coming along?" Emma's research helped shape the final proposal. "We're launching in 3 hospitals next month. Catherine stole a grape from the fruit platter. She's so much like Sarah sometimes, that same drive to help others. With a dash of Daniel's medical brilliance, Marcus added, pulling her close, for a quick kiss. Remember her face when you showed her his old research papers. Their conversation was interrupted by thundering footsteps on the stairs. James and Tyler burst into the kitchen, both in basketball jerseys, James in Stanford red, Tyler in their high school's blue and gold. "Dad, Catherine, Coach Martinez said I'm starting in Friday's game." Tyler's face glowed with excitement. "First freshman to make starting lineup this season. That's my little brother." James threw an arm around Tyler's shoulders, their height difference now barely noticeable. "We've been practicing that three-point shot for weeks." The easy way James claimed Tyler as his brother still warmed Marcus's heart. The boys had grown inseparable over the past year, their shared love of basketball creating a bond that went far beyond step-siblings. "Don't forget we're meeting Emma at the airport Thursday," Catherine reminded them. "She wants to see your game before the picnic." As if I could forget, Tyler rolled his eyes fondly. "She's only texted me about it like 20 times. Says she's bringing Michael too." "Speaking of Michael," Marcus began carefully. "Dad," James interrupted, grinning, "we all saw him looking at engagement rings online when he visited last month. Let Emma handle it her way." Catherine laughed at Marcus's expression. "Our children grew up when we weren't looking," she said, straightening Tyler's collar. "Speaking of growing up, how's the college search going?" The boys exchanged glances. "Actually," Tyler said, "we've been talking about that. James wants to apply to Stanford's sports management program, and Tyler's looking at their engineering school," James finished. "We thought maybe we could be there for Emma's medical school years." Marcus and Catherine shared a look of their own, pride, amusement, and gratitude for how completely their children had embraced being family. "Stanford better be ready for the Thompson-Chen invasion," Catherine smiled. "Though I think the Foundation's education fund can handle it." "About the Foundation," Marcus set down the sandwich he was wrapping. "Harrison called yesterday. The Emergency Response Protection Program is being adopted by every major corporation in the country. They're calling it the new gold standard in workplace ethics." "I saw the article," James said proudly. "My English teacher used it in class. Talked about how sometimes one person's choice can change everything." He looked at Marcus. "She meant you, Dad, about helping me that night." The word "dad" still felt like a gift every time James used it. Marcus had never tried to replace Daniel in James's heart, just as Catherine had never tried to replace Sarah. Instead, they'd all learned how love could expand, creating space for new connections while honoring old ones. "Actually," Catherine added, "that's part of why tomorrow's picnic is so special. We're announcing the Sarah Thompson Daniel Chen Memorial Fund. It'll provide emergency medical support for families facing crises, combine workplace protection with healthcare access." "Mom and Dad would love that," James said softly, while Tyler nodded agreement. The doorbell rang, Jenny Park arriving early to help with picnic preparations. She'd become more than an assistant over the past year, almost part of the family herself. "You won't believe the RSVP list," she announced, sweeping in with clipboard in hand. "Every major CEO in the region, half the hospital board, and," she paused for effect, "Sarah Chen from Wilson Manufacturing. Seems the changes there have exceeded all expectations." Marcus wrapped an arm around Catherine's waist, watching their sons help Jenny organize supplies. The kitchen was alive with purpose and love, seamlessly blending their past and present. "You know what I was thinking about this morning?" he asked Catherine quietly. "What's that?" "That night in the woods. How terrified I was of losing everything." He smiled at their boys, now arguing good-naturedly about proper cooler packing technique. "I had no idea I was about to find everything instead." Catherine leaned into him, her rings catching the morning light. "That's the thing about love," she said. "The real kind. The lasting kind. It doesn't subtract. It multiplies." From upstairs came the cheerful sound of Sarah's wind chimes, kept now in the window of their new home office. the gentle tinkling mixed with their children's laughter, creating a symphony of old memories and new joy. The old Wilson manufacturing building looked different in the morning light. Gone were the harsh security lights and chain-link fences, replaced by landscaped gardens and a welcoming entrance. The Chen Foundation logo shared space with the new Anderson Industries sign, symbolizing the partnership that had transformed the facility into something unprecedented, a combination of manufacturing plant and community center. Marcus stood with Catherine at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Their family gathered close. Emma had flown in from Stanford, where she was starting her second year of medical school, Michael's new engagement ring sparkling on her finger. James and Tyler, home from their first semester at college, wore matching grins as they filmed the event for their social media channels. The Thompson-Chen brothers had quite a following these days. 5 years ago today, Marcus addressed the crowd. I stood in the loading bay behind this building and heard a cry in the dark. The choice I made that night cost me my job and led me to everything that matters most. He smiled at his family. Today, we're ensuring that no one ever has to choose between doing what's right and keeping their livelihood. The renovated facility housed not just modernized production lines with state-of-the-art safety protocols, but also a medical clinic, childcare center, and education facility. The Sarah Thompson Daniel Chen Memorial Wing provided emergency support services, while the main atrium displayed a simple plaque, "Choose Compassion." My late husband believed that medicine was about more than healing bodies. Catherine took over, her hand finding Marcus's. And Marcus's late wife knew that teaching was about more than facts and figures. They understood that true care means supporting the whole person, the whole family. That's what we've built here, a place where work and humanity go hand in hand. Sarah Chen, now Anderson Industries Head of Worker Relations, stepped forward to present the first Thompson Effect Leadership Award to a young supervisor who had implemented similar programs across their factories nationwide. "It's spreading," she whispered to Marcus afterward. "Everything you started that night, it's changing how business works everywhere." The ceremony shifted to tours of the facility. Marcus found himself in the loading bay, where it had all begun, now brightened and modernized, but still holding echoes of that pivotal night. "Dad?" James appeared beside him, Tyler close behind. "We found something you should see." They led him to the break room, where a wall of photographs documented the building's transformation. But it was the oldest picture that caught his eye, a grainy security camera shot of him carrying a young James to safety. "The night everything changed," James said softly. "For all of us. You know what I remember most," Tyler added. "Not the fear about you losing your job. It was how you never regretted helping James. How you taught us that doing the right thing matters more than playing it safe." "Your mother taught me that," Marcus replied, touching the ring on his finger. "Just like Daniel taught Catherine about using privilege to create change." "And now look what you've built together." Emma joined them, Catherine beside her. "A whole movement about choosing compassion over caution, about helping families stay whole." Catherine leaned against Marcus, surveying their children. All three of them bright, confident, and carrying forward the best of both their original parents and their new family. "The foundation's expanding again," she announced. "We're opening centers like this across the country. The Thompson Effect is becoming a standard business model. And the medical training program Emma designed is being adopted by teaching hospitals nationwide," Marcus added proudly. "Sarah would love knowing her daughter is revolutionizing patient care, just like Daniel would love seeing James coaching kids at the community center," Catherine smiled. "And Tyler's robotics program helping injured workers return to work." The family made their way outside, where the foundation's annual picnic was getting underway on the renovated grounds. Hundreds of families gathered, workers, executives, community members, all sharing food and laughter together. "Remember when you thought you weren't qualified to run foundation programs?" Catherine teased Marcus gently. "Remember when we worried?" About what the board would think of our relationship, he countered, pulling her close. Remember when we thought we were being subtle about matchmaking you two? Emma laughed, drawing chuckles from her brothers. A small girl ran past them, chasing a basketball that had gotten away. Without thinking, Marcus caught it and handed it back, remembering another child in need of help on a dark night. Some things don't change, Catherine observed. The important things never should, Marcus agreed. Compassion, family, love that grows. They watched their children disperse into the crowd, Emma discussing medical programs with hospital administrators, the boys organizing a basketball game with local kids. Their family had grown beyond blood and marriage, extending to everyone touched by the changes they'd created together. You know what Daniel used to say? Catherine's voice was soft with memory. That the measure of a life isn't in what you gain, but in what you give. Sarah said something similar, Marcus nodded. That love isn't about holding on, it's about building bridges. Around them, the picnic hummed with life and possibility. The old factory, that had once seemed like the end of everything, now stood as a monument to new beginnings, to choices made in darkness that led to unexpected light. To love that didn't divide or subtract, but multiplied endlessly, touching life after life after life. Ready to go build more bridges? Catherine asked, eyes twinkling. Marcus looked at their children, their legacy, their future still unfolding. With you? Always. Above them in the clear autumn sky, leaves danced on the breeze, like Sarah's wind chimes, like Daniel's garden flowers, like love that knew no bounds. A perfect ending that was really just another beautiful beginning.